Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider, your one stop for all things Porsche and PCA. Here's your host, Vu Gwyn, and the Insider crew.
All right, welcome to the Porsche Club Insider podcast. No, Vu Gwyn is not here. We have our special guest sitting at his seat because I hate to switch seats when Vu's not here. I got to move everything, and I'm so used to having my laptop in a certain place, and I've gotten accustomed. It's almost like an airplane. I know a lot of people sit in the same seat, no matter what, on an airplane, and that's how I am with this podcast. So I told Joe he can have the seat of honor where Vu sits, which usually is where we should put the guests anyhow, because everyone sees our faces every week and they always want to see a better shot of the guests. So Vu's not here because he's on a call with Princess. As you know, we have our cruise every year, and they're changing management. So this was a pretty critical call for Vu to be on. So I think we'll be able to survive without him. And it's also a snow day today. The PCA office is very empty. Usually we have it filled with people, and it's just a few of us. And I want to point out that the guy with the convertible and on rear-wheel drive made it inside to the office without any delays. Wasn't
nice.
Wasn't an issue.
Good for you.
Yeah, put winter tires on. That thing's a little tank.
Well, I have a 640 horsepower SUV with summer tires.
That blew my mind when you pulled up and you said that.
Yeah.
So we have Joe Hikel on, who's a PCA member and has a lot of very cool cars. And I thought, we meet a lot of people who are, I guess, collectors, whether they want to be or not. They're collectors, and I always take the time to just pick their brain as to why they bought certain cars, what attracted them to either a certain model, either a theme in their collection, what makes them drive and own what they do. So Joe's my test subject of this podcast, and hopefully we'll do more because a lot of times the cars are interesting, but so are the people behind them. So, Joe, tell us a little bit about how you got into cars. Is that something that your father was into, or
yeah?
Something
So my dad was really young when I was born. He was just turned 18. And then he loved cars. So when he was maybe 21 and I was 3, he had a 59 Chevy Impala. 348, 335, tri-power, dark blue, white interior, white convertible top, 3-speed on the floor. And he would put me on his lap, and he would do the clutch and the gas, and I would do the shifter at 3.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
My dad used to do that in his old Blazer.
Right. Yeah. So we would, he was definitely a car guy then. And he remained a car guy right up until he passed 8 years ago. So that's how I kind of got into it. When I was 8, 9 years old, I could recite all the 60s, muscle cars. I knew what everything was. And we used to go to hot rod car shows down at the Civic Center in Baltimore, and we'd always go on the last day because they would bring the cars out and they would do burnouts and wheelies going down. That was always the entertainment. So
he was a real car guy.
He was
casually.
No. He was a real car guy. Yep.
And it was your grandfather the same way? Is this something?
No, my grandfather wasn't. My dad just, I guess, acquired it over time as a young guy and just instilled it in me, and I've kind of instilled it in my kids as well.
Now, was your father just into American cars or anything?
No. Eventually, he ended up with European cars. So in '87, we had a good year at work, and he got a new 928 S4.
Oh, wow!
So that was a pretty neat car. And then he went from that. He had I guess later we've had a bunch of SUVs. He had hot rod SUVs, AMG, 63 SUVs, and then he had a Bentley Flying Spur for a while, and then he ended up with a Mercedes S63 two-door, big two-door coupe that my stepmom still has in 15. So he ended up going European, when he got older.
So it would have probably been unusual for you not to be in the cars.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. When I was 14 or 15, I wanted one in the worst way. I wanted my driver's license like the day after my 16th birthday, and then I lusted after cars. I ended up loving British cars, and I really wanted a 911. I remember when I got my first car, it was a 75 TR6, and I saved and saved and saved. I got it when I was just past my 18th birthday, and it was brand new. So I bought it. It would cost $6,000, and my dad co-signed the note for me. I had half down, but what I really wanted was I test drove a speed yellow 73 911S.
Wow.
In
That had to be a rare color,
in
too.
75.
Wow.
This was a 73. They had it over at Porsche Audi of Catonsville, which is where the Mercedes of Catonsville is now on Route 40. And it was $10,000, and I just couldn't swing it. It was just too much money.
Yeah. My question was going to be, our dream cars usually aren't our first cars. So was the MG, I think you said, or
No,
Triumph?
it was a TR6. It was
TR6
a
Triumph.
So the 911 was number one. Number two was the Alpha Spider that Dustin Hoffman
of
drove
course,
in the Graduate.
yeah.
That was $7,000 new.
Okay.
And I
yeah.
settled for the TR6 at $6,000.
And what year TR6 was it?
75.
Okay.
So next to the last
Yep.
year. Dark blue, red wall tires. And I drove that thing as a daily 9 years, 3 exhaust systems, 5 convertible tops.
Because each one rusted off, right?
Oh, yeah. It got, ended up having to have it painted about 5 years in because they have no inner fender well. So all the debris kicks up on the inside and they rust from the inside out. So anyway.
Yeah, that's since I drive a convertible every day, you learn to live with the little intricacies of a convertible. Like I just developed a new leak.
Yeah. Well, they shrink.
Yeah, exactly. That's what
the back. Mine had that you could zip down the rear window, and of course that would get yellow and get brittle and stuff like that. And I didn't have it in the garage. I kept it outside, so the snow didn't do very well with
Yeah, you can't see out of my rear window.
So.
Yeah.
I'm hoping if the police ever pull me over, they'll ask
Yep.
if I can see through the rear window. But that's part of living with especially like the Triumph. My BMW is a Roadster,
Right.
so it's a very, very thin top.
Right.
Nothing luxurious about it, and I've already replaced the rear window once, but it's plastic, so especially when you use it every day,
Yep.
it's bound to get
Zippers go bad. The
yeah,
tops
exactly.
shrink. They start leaking.
Exactly.
It's all, and then it gets hard to put them down and put them back up again, and then they tear.
So, what did you replace the Triumph with?
Oh, let's see. I have to think about that for a minute. I ended up, actually, we're in the construction business, so I ended up going SUV pretty early. I had, I think, a 84 Cherokee, which was the very first of the small body style. Back then, Jeeps had the real big body style Wagoneers.
And those
Cherokee.
were unibody instead of body on frame.
Exactly.
So they handle a little better.
2.5 liter 4-cylinder manual transmission, just as slow as you could possibly think. But but it was a little bit smaller and it had pretty good gas mileage. And I had a string of SUVs after that. First Porsche was 85. I got a factory demo. It was actually Rudy Tischer's car. When he owned Tischer down in Silver Spring. It was an 85 944, had like 2,000 miles on it, dealer demo, dark blue, gray interior, white center Fuchs wheels.
Wow.
So that was kind of a unique car.
Yeah, definitely.
That's something when the 944 came out that you
Well, I wanted a
lusted after?
Porsche and the worst way, and that was the affordable one.
okay.
Yeah.
So, and it was slow too, but boy, it handled. That was a great car. I love that car.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting out of that when my kids started growing up and I needed a bigger car. My wife had a little 79 Subaru 4-wheel drive wagon.
I'm
And
pretty sure kids will fit in the hatch of a 944, won't they?
yeah, my kids started getting to be, 6, 7, 8 years old, and the legs got too long, and they couldn't fit back then. That was, well, I had my son in the back in the rear part of the TR6.
Yeah,
just the rear deck. You'd shove the car seat in there and wedge it in with the seat.
Yeah.
Right. So, that's what we did. We weren't as Nazi as they are today with the seatbelt regulations.
We took down my wife's nephews, who were, I think, maybe 8 and 9 or 9 or 10 down to Orlando for Disney World. We drove down to my 924S.
Yeah.
And we left at night so they would sleep. And of course, the plan was we folded down the rear seats and made a bed for them.
Oh, but made a bed.
Yeah, and we put the luggage around them, and I kept on thinking I cannot get into an accident.
Oh, I know.
But these two kids in the back, but they slept for the whole night. Us traveling down 95 because you can only do that in a 944, 944.
Sure. I remember being a kid, and one of the neatest places to ride was in the rear deck above the rear seat.
Oh yeah.
In a sedan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was the coolest place.
That was the coolest place to be. Or on the wheel wells of a pickup truck outside.
Yep, that. And then
outside,
Volvos with the rear view seating and a station wagon. That was
not
cool.
just Volvos. So actually, it's interesting because I ended up coming out of the 944 into we traded both that and that 84 Cherokee on a 760 turbo wagon for my wife.
Nice.
Which was a fairly high end car back then, at least for me.
Yeah.
But I remember being a kid and then in the '60s, and it was the Buick and the Oldsmobile estates. The wagons with the rear seats facing aft, and of course the kids were in the crumple zone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's where the kids want to be, but
right. So so that's where we were.
So before we go any further, I want to thank Pirelli for their sponsorship of the podcast. And if you're currently not a PCA member currently, but you own a Porsche, what are you waiting for? Be sure to have your VIN or VIN handy. And for those of you who don't currently own a Porsche, check out our test drive program and join PCA. Why you have a Porsche and you're not a member of PCA, I don't know, but you're missing out. So go to PCA.org and join the club. It's only $56 a year. You get a magazine, printed magazine in the mail every month. And then most of all, you get to do things with other enthusiasts. And you can tell your wife, your girlfriend, your significant other that you're not crazy, that you met a bunch of other people that are just as passionate about the brand as you are. So you move from the 944, you get the wagon. What's the next Porsche that you buy?
So I basically had SUVs in my job, and I drove a lot. I mean, I'm in the construction business, I would drive 45,000 miles a year. So I would run through SUVs, and I had a bunch of different American ones and some European ones. So I ended up getting my first hobby car, if you will, in 15. I got a Turbo S.
Oh, okay.
That was my 50th birthday. No, that's not right. I'm sorry. I had it in 07 for my 50th birthday present to myself. I got a BMW M6 convertible with the V10.
Wow.
Okay. And then I ended up in 15, so I kept that for a while. Actually, I just sold that a couple years ago. And I got my first Porsche was a 15 Turbo S. So I went from SUVs to a 991.1. I think at 15 was a .1 Turbo S. So a lot of people say the modern car, the 991 and the 992, feel big compared to the older cars. But for me, coming out of an SUV, it felt small.
That's interesting.
It felt great.
Yeah.
So I started modern, and then from there, over time, I started going backwards and getting smaller.
Now, when you got the BMW for your 50th, Did you look at Porsche at the same time, or was there nothing there
No,
that attracted you?
I fell in love, and I'm this way. I'm kind of an impulse buyer. We'll talk about that with some of the purchases that I've done. I fell in love with the V10 and the back window down, and it went up to 8,200 RPMs, and it sounded like a Formula One car. So
Sounds convincing to me.
right?
Yeah.
So I just fell in love with that sound and the look of that car.
That had to be a pretty limited production car.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was a relatively expensive one too.
Yeah.
It depreciated like a rock, and the guy that bought it from me didn't, he works with me, and he didn't spend a lot for it, but he spends a lot to get
I
it
was going to
fixed.
say, I don't think the maintenance is going to be cheap.
No.
It sounds like it on that car.
Does he still have it?
He does. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He just got it from me maybe 3 years ago, I guess.
Yeah,
and so we work together, so I get to see it, which is one of the best things out there is to be able to still see the stuff that you bought.
So was the turbo everything you thought it would be when you got that?
Unbelievable car. Unbelievable. Just I still think, and I have a 992 now. I ended up getting a build slot for a 992 Turbo S for a 22 Turbo S from Porsche Silver Spring, and so I ended up selling the 991 to a colleague of mine in Fredericksburg, and he had an Arena Red 996 Turbo that he sold to my son.
Okay,
so we kind of kept it in the family.
Yeah.
I think that, in my humble opinion, that a Turbo S is the best all-around daily or trip car that's made cost no object today. If I'm going to drive across the country, I'm taking a Turbo S.
Now, do you leave the car stock, or do you?
It depends on the
modify
car.
Yeah.
Oh, the Turbo S. The only thing I didn't like about it was I think it looks a little too similar to a regular 992. If you just look at a Carrera compared to a Turbo S, the money's twice as much, the performance is twice as nice, but the car doesn't look that much different. So I ended up doing some carbon fiber bits on the rockers and on the diffuser in the back and the splitter in the front and at the intake fence to kind of dress it up a little bit, but the rest of it's stock.
Yeah, I think that's almost a German way or the Porsche way. They're very subtle.
Right.
Like you can always tell clothing that's a counterfeit because they have Porsche all over the sleeves and everything.
That's right.
I always joke. I say you can tell it's Porsche when they put black on black.
Right.
That's a Porsche shirt because they make it very subtle, nothing in your face.
Yeah. So what I found out is going through that process is the company that I bought those bits from is a company called DB Carbon. And when the pieces came in, the guys down at Silver Spring put them on for me. And when we looked at the new pieces, they had the Porsche part numbers on them. So it was real easy for them to put together. Well, come to find out, DB Carbon supplies carbon fiber bits for Porsche.
Oh, wow.
They just supply other parts that Porsche doesn't offer.
Interesting.
So
you're buying OEM.
I was going to say, pretty close to OEM then.
OEM Plus, there we go.
That's exactly right. So it came out pretty nice.
So I know you have other cars also in your collection that aren't Porsches that are really interesting.
Yep.
Were they bought before you got your turbo, or were they bought
after?
Okay.
Yeah. So I went from one hobby car, had the M6, and then the Turbo S was my second hobby car. And then after that, over the past 3 or 4 years, I've kind of accumulated all the cars that I wanted when I was 16. Now that I can afford them when I'm in my 60s. So,
nice.
Yeah, it seemed just looking from the outside that you were definitely building a collection.
Yeah. From
the cars we'd see at Cars and Coffee that you bring. And I was always curious as to was there going to be a theme? Was it? Well, we always tease Boo about every car he gets is sentimental or something that he has a reason, a memory that he.
So my process is a lot more random than that. Yeah. I went through a phase. I went through about a year where I became addicted to bring a trailer. So I've heard you guys all talk about the recommendations of PPI and be really careful. And I will tell you that almost every car that I've bought sight unseen.
You know what's funny is, I've given, in various jobs over the years, and at PCA, I've given advice whenever we're talking about a used car. Always get a pre-purchase inspection. I want to say I've only gotten pre-purchase inspections on maybe, and possibly not even, half the cars I've ever bought. Because sometimes it's just, you think, and it might be true, that if you take the time to get an inspection or try and convince or persuade the owner to do that, it might be too late.
Yep.
With some of these cars.
So I've bought a good handful of cars on Bring a Trailer. I bought some cars from some pretty reputable high-end dealers.
I was going to say, you bought them from pretty well-known dealers, though, right?
Some. Okay. So, some on Bring a Trailer. Some I got 1, 2, 3 from Ryan Freeman on Long Island. It was so kind of premium priced, higher end deals. The 997 I own, for instance, had 10,000 original miles. It's a C4 GTS, and the car's pretty much perfect. Okay, I changed it a little bit, but it's pretty much perfect. Now, one of the ones I got to Bring a Trailer came from Grand Prix Motors out in Oregon, and that one I got surprised a little bit with the quality of the paint. They did a good job of kind of hiding all the stone chips, and so I ended up getting that. That was the 993. Which I ended up getting painted because I was disappointed enough with the paint. And then I've bought some fresh restorations too. I bought a 1962 Austin Healey 3000, and I was the first guy to own the car. I bought a 67 E-Type, and both of those were on Bring a Trailer. And both of those I was the first owner after the fresh restoration, and both of them needed sorting out.
So fresh restoration means that somebody paid to have this thing restored but didn't drive it.
Now, I think somebody bought the car, restored it to sell it. Okay.
Yeah.
They didn't. So somebody, that was their mission. As a matter of fact, the E-Type, a guy does 3 or 4 of them a year and puts them on Bring a Trailer. So he buys old cars, brings them up to speed, and then tries to make money.
So you saw it after it was done. It wasn't
exactly.
He said, "I have a car I'm restoring."
Right.
And
so both the Healey and the E-Type were that way.
So were they restored back to the original color? Because I know sometimes when people do this, I've seen it with 356s. They'll say we can paint it any color you want.
No, they were both the original color.
So
both original colors.
That's good. I mean, they're not buying what they thought looked good. You're buying the original color.
That's right.
Yeah, that's
So what do you look for in a car? I'm sort of a, super colorful cars I can appreciate, but not really my thing. If you give me a choice between a GT3 RS and a Turbo S, I'd probably go GT3 RS. What kind of car person are you?
So I think there's different use cases for both. For instance, I own 2 992s. I have a Turbo S. And I'd never driven a 992 GT3, and it just so happened there was one at 75th anniversary. There's one on the showroom floor at Silver Spring that somebody had turned in. It was a Touring, and I drove that with a manual, and I said, okay, I got to have that. I told Bruce down there 15 minutes after I drove it, I said, well, this was a mistake driving this car because I have to have it. So I have both. Okay, I use the Turbo S for long range, especially if it's going to rain because it doesn't have, super aggressive tires. But then the Touring, if I'm going to do 3 hours, which I drive these. I try to drive one of these sports cars just about every single day. Yeah. I live about 30 miles from where I work and where I store the cars. So I can have that trip, either my commute one way or the other, go from 45 minutes up to 2 hours, and it's all back roads and it's all against traffic. So that's how I exercise the cars.
Yeah, I've noticed that you're not a garage queen.
No, I want to.
All your cars get driven. I see pictures of them being driven.
So I hate it if they go more than a month. I try to get them out every 2 weeks. As a matter of fact, I hate it now. I actually had to put them all on flat stoppers. We actually have, snow and salt here in Maryland for the first time in a couple of years. So I've had to, and I had, just last week I had 2 of them out because we got enough rain where it washed the salt off and I could get a couple of them out. So
that Sunday was a perfect day with a lot of people exercising their cars.
And then as it relates to color, I have I have, the Turbo S is GT Silver, which is kind of boring, right?
Yeah.
But the Touring is jet green metallic, which is kind of interesting. And then I have that 68 911L, which is tangerine, which that might get more attention than any of the cars that I have. Whenever I have that out, people get drawn to the orange color.
Plus the vintage 911
Yeah.
and as the it's not Gulf orange, it's Signal orange, right?
No, it's tangerine.
Tangerine.
And so the American color is tangerine. In Germany, they call it blood orange.
Blood orange.
Yeah.
So, and of course, I bought that from another PCA member. And that's one of the benefits of one of the reasons I bought it was I got the benefit of knowing the guy that's owned it for 10 years and also the guy that's worked on it for 10 years. So I had both a mechanic history and a driver history. And I've done some pretty significant work to that car and kind of transformed it. I just picked it up day before yesterday. As a matter of fact, I just had the transmission rebuilt. Completely changed the car. The clutch was, I think, redone in 92, and all the rest of the internals of the transmission were original from 1968.
Wow.
So it needed everything. It needed synchros and bearings, and the third gear set had this big chunk out of it, so I'm going to go yell at Jim for grinding his gears.
I thought it was him. I thought it was him.
Did you see the transmission out of the car?
Oh, yeah.
Because,
Saw it all taken
those
apart.
little transmissions compared to what the big ones are now.
Yeah.
The 901s back then were like tiny compared to
But
992.
driving the car just a couple of days ago, it's completely transformed it. I mean, it's going to take a little while to break it in. It's a little notchy, but I used to wander around to find the gears, and now it goes.
And that makes all the difference in the world.
And it had a big whine to it too, a big transmission noise from when Jim had it, and now that's all gone. Now I get just hear exhaust. So
yeah, when I hear original, I warn people. I go, that doesn't mean you're going to experience what that car felt like new.
That's right.
That just means you're experiencing suspension that's 60 years old.
Right.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind that it's not bad to replace bushings or shocks. That's something
Yeah.
wears out,
So that's what to that car I've replaced bushings and shocks. I've done new tires. I took out the factory air conditioning. Okay, it had factory air conditioning was pretty rare. It was kind of dealer installed. It wasn't factory. Big honking compressor, and the unit that was under the dash was looking kind of ragged. But when we took that out, between the unit and the hoses and the compressor, we took out like 85 pounds.
Wow.
Oh,
I mean, it's just all this stuff, and the car now runs 15 degrees cooler.
That's so good.
Because it's not driving that compressor.
And this was a
It runs
911T?
better. It's a 911L.
An L, yeah.
1968 911L, yeah.
So that still had the 130, 120 horsepower.
Yeah.
So any bit of weight you can get out.
Right. So mine, the guy before me ended up, he had it's got a 2.7 head on it, so it's been stroked. So we think it has about 170 horsepower today.
Yeah.
But yeah, when you took that stuff out, you could just feel it breathing better and you feel it handling better.
Yeah.
Of course, we did all this stuff at the same time. But that car now with the transmission is unbelievable. As a matter of fact, I let Jim drive it last summer after I had done the work before the transmission. He said the car had been completely transformed then.
Yeah.
So
I think he drove it down to Amelia one time.
he did.
Yeah, he's pretty hardcore.
He did. He drove it down to Amelia, and that car at 80 miles an hour is at about 5,200 RPMs.
Wow.
So it's a buzzsaw going down the road. It's kind of got short gearing.
Yeah, I drove it for a couple hours when he owned it. We did a day, we swapped cars and whatnot, and all I remember was the mirrors. Fender mounted mirrors, and I couldn't see anything out of those mirrors.
Yeah.
Well, that's a neat story. So, Jim was very meticulous with the documentation of that car, right? So, there in the documentation, there's at least a 5-page booklet on those Talbot mirrors, and there's no documentation anywhere that says the factory put them in. And what I guess what I've heard is kind of the dealer put them wherever you wanted them, right? Did you want them up there? And I think that's the case because there's no holes anywhere else where somebody moved them there.
And it wasn't, let's put them where you can see the best. It was, let's put them where it looks best on the car. Right?
I guess. My E-Type Jaguar is the same way. Today, my E-Type Jaguar has no mirrors.
Oh, man.
Because that's how they came.
Yeah.
And the dealer put them wherever you wanted them.
Wow.
and they bolted them in. So
That's funny.
That's I didn't realize your Jag didn't have any
no,
side mirrors.
no side mirrors.
Huh, that's
But
interesting.
you turn like this and you can see everything. It's top down. I mean,
That's like my 914 is
Yeah.
so narrow that
Right.
with the rear view mirror, I see everything.
Right.
I don't need a right side mirror because you can see, and it's just everything so small and your peripheral vision, you can see
Yep.
it right out the right hand side.
So the problem with that is it takes two people to adjust that tail mirror. Right?
Yes.
All right. So I'll get it adjusted, and then the guy that cleans them for me will move the seat.
Oh my God.
All right. And then I don't get the seat back exactly where it was before, and then it's not adjusted right. So I've gotten to the point where I just don't use them. I just look.
Yeah. When
Yeah.
within the first minute of driving that car, I thought to myself, we're not using these mirrors. We're turning our head left and right when we're
That's
switching
just what
lanes.
you do.
But cool wise, it definitely looks very cool with
Yep.
those mirrors. So you surprised us all in the Cars and Coffee community when you showed up with the Rod Emory Special.
Yeah.
Tell us what led you to buy this and what it was.
So I love detail, and I don't watch regular TV anymore. I watch YouTube all the time. So I kind of love Singer, and I loved Emory, and I learned, watched the stories, went through the whole concept of having a car from 1958, but have some modernity to it where it would be fun to drive, and you could drive it, on the highway for a long trip. So my wife and I were sitting down one night, and I was showing her the YouTubes, and she was in love with that car too. And we were thinking about commissioning one. Well, to commission one, you give them a big check, and then you wait about somewhere between 5 and 7 years to get your car.
Oh my God.
He builds
5 to 7.
5 to 7 years.
Wow.
He builds 15 of those a year, and he's 5 to 7 years out. Got them sold out in front.
Yeah.
Right? So we're thinking, does it make sense for us to do that? Yeah, maybe we'll do it. What color will we pick? Well, probably we have a boat that's kind of this medium blue. We probably would do something like that. The next morning, this one shows up on Bring a Trailer.
Yeah. I remember when this one was
Right.
built, I think. And I
Yeah.
remember it making the rounds on, car websites and
Yeah.
all that. Yeah.
So I called my wife up and I said, honey, it's destiny. I mean, we were. Now she's convinced that I knew it was
I was
coming.
going to say,
Yeah.
I've tried that with my wife. It doesn't work.
Yeah. So I ended up buying it on Bring a Trailer.
Nice.
And I overpaid. There's no question. The guy made money on me, waiting. But I will tell you that when it had 750 miles on the build. I'm guessing 300 of which were put on by Rod.
So when you say day, it wasn't Rod who sold it to you. It was
No,
the
guy who commissioned it, right? So
Did he sell why? Did he say why he?
So
was
I went and picked up the car in South Florida from his house, right? And he said that he bought the car to go on rallies with it, week-long rallies, Ram's Horn and those ones out west, Hill Country, things like that. He had 7 or 8 other cars that he took on rallies. And during the build, his wife hurt her back. And he went to California like 4 times from South Florida during the build, was in love with the car. When he got the car back, he took his wife for a ride, and she said to him, I can't ride in this car. So that's when he put it up for sale.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, when I loaded that thing into my trailer, he was crying.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
he was
Wait that long for a
so
car.
emotionally
Yeah,
attached to the car and in the process.
Yeah.
And that car is a blast to drive.
Now tell us how it started, because it's not what it seems.
No, so it started as a notchback coupe, and Rod did his, and they call it the Special. So it's kind of got some. If you look at it, it's a 58 speedster. It's got some speedster influence. It's got the rockers are rolled under. The front end looks a little bit like a Spider. It has no bumpers. It's got bigger wheels and tires than a 356 typically has. It has a custom engine that he does as a joint venture with Rossport, which is a 993 case that's been cut down to 4 cylinders, fuel injected. So it's got but the throttle bodies, so they look like carburetors. It's got electronic ignition, Motul stuff. So it's 2.6 liter 4 that has 260 horsepower at about 7,000 RPMs.
Wow.
And the car weighs 1,800 pounds.
Wow.
Right?
That is so cool.
And it's got a
That's faster than the old Carreras back
got
then.
it's got GT3 rear suspension. It's got
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's got different front suspension as well. No, it's just beefed up 356 front suspension.
Yeah.
But the car is pretty darn rowdy, that's for sure. It's loud, but it handles great. I took it on one of the Chesapeake tours, and I was behind Mark Miller in his modern Spider, and I kept right up with him. Now it feels like an old car sometimes. It's thin, wooden steering wheel, and it doesn't have all the nanny aids that a new car has, but I kept right up with him, 15, 20 over, I guess is about what we were doing.
Yeah.
And then on the way home, I'm coming, we went out, it was an ice cream run. So we went out out west for maybe 2 hours. So I'm coming home on the highway, and I'm thinking, well, I'm going about 80. And I figured, well, what's this car going to feel like? How planted is it being 1,800 pounds? Well, I would kind of ratcheted it up incrementally. And for a while, I was at 130.
Wow.
And it was just as solid as a rock.
Yeah.
And then it started raining a little. I had the top down, raining a little bit, so I turned the wipers on to clear the windscreen, but I was going fast enough where it wasn't getting wet. But the wipers are about this big.
Yeah.
Because it's a tiny little windscreen.
Yeah.
So this car doesn't have any ABS.
No.
Doesn't have any PSM or stability management.
That's exactly right.
It's still raw. I mean, it has a lot of modern suspension and drivetrain, but it's still
raw, but it's
still
smooth and it's solid.
Still hoping you have the talent to keep it on the road.
Well, and you can't be an idiot with it, right?
Yeah.
You can't go in double the speed limit on a turn and expect it to do the work for you. You got to do the work. But it's just so much fun to drive.
And transmission, I guess, is upgraded too.
It's a 901.
I know. Okay.
So it's a dog leg left 5-speed, just like it's in the 68, with a short shift.
Upgraded by a few years, not.
Brand new. It's all brand new. Yeah. So, by the way, they don't actually cut those cases down anymore. They have the cases custom made.
Okay.
But it truly has all 993 internals inside of it.
No, it looks great when you look at the engine. Yeah, it's certainly it's not a pushrod 356
right.
Engine.
Well, so you know this better than I do, but I believe in 1958 a Speedster probably came stock with about 70 horsepower, 60
stock. It'd be the standard
around there.
Yeah.
Without the Carrera.
Without getting a super.
Yeah, without the engine that just amazes me, the one that cost about $200,000 just for the motor now, right?
The 4-cam.
Yeah, the 4-cam.
Or more.
And it's a lot more finicky as far as maintenance than what you have in your car.
What I love is that I saw a drawing somewhere of that with the case open.
Yeah.
Of what that looks like, all those gears, right?
Yeah. We actually have a video about all of that from
at Revs Institute. They have one cut away, and you hit a button and it shows you all the gears working. It's really a marvel of engineering, but you can also understand why Porsche didn't build them in quantity, because it's so expensive to build.
And what are there, 3 or 4 people that know how to work on them?
something like that. Yeah, something like that.
And what I was told by one of them was that they don't share information.
Yeah, of course.
So remember, we learned they had to make their own tools, and it's a almost like a dark magic hobby that they don't share information on.
And that has what, like
it.
130 horsepower, I believe that engine does.
So that was the first. That was the first engine to break the 100 horsepower per liter.
Right.
So it was about. It depends on what size engine it was, because it went all the way up to a 2-liter.
Right.
Which would have been 200 horsepower.
200 horsepower. Okay.
Yeah. 1.6 to 2 liter, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or 1.5, something like that. But anyways, they were.
There was a red
push
one
rod.
on Legendary Motor Car site for a while. I troll all those sites. I troll Legendary, I troll Friedman, and I troll Merit Partners too.
So what are you trolling for now? What are you looking at?
I'm not looking at anything.
Yeah?
I think I'm pretty good with the amount of cars that I have.
Yeah.
But I don't go hunting. I mean, I kind of just wait for stuff to strike me and just, oh yeah, I really.
But you must be
I
getting
like
calls
that
from
spec.
people saying, "Hey, I got this in," or "Hey,
No, I'm not.
not yet."
No, because it's too many different people that I've gotten the cars from. A couple of them from Bring a Trailer, a couple of them from Ryan Friedman, a couple of them, from Jim. And
So was your 99 Turbo? Was that something you got an allocation and had built, or did you buy that?
the 992.
Yeah.
So the 991, I ended up they found it for me at a dealership in Rhode Island.
Already built.
Already done, but it only had one thing that I would have spec'd differently, which was it had the carbon fiber door sills, but it didn't have the illuminated ones. So I would have gotten the illuminated ones. The 992, I got a slot. So I paid sticker and got a slot and spec'd that one out. The 992 Touring, I bought used, a year old.
How hard was it to wait for this car to be built? I know it's not 7 years, but you still.
No, it wasn't bad because I still had the 991.
Okay.
So and that took maybe 6 months, something like that. It wasn't bad at all.
Have you done? I guess did you do European delivery?
No,
with that car?
I did. I haven't done that with any car. And you just mentioned waiting. Well, that's the problem.
Yeah.
I couldn't bring myself to write a check, go to Germany, and drive the car, and then have to wait for it 6 or 7 weeks after I've already experienced it. I just couldn't do that.
Which brings us to the other car you bought that also had probably equally long wait. Was your Singer?
Yeah, so that's the most recent one. So the classics, I thought about one of those for a long time too. And when I decided I wanted one, they had sold out of the classics. So they've been making those for about 7 years now.
Yeah.
They limited it to 450 of them. So, and the last one is in production right now. And it's a 7-year wait for one of those now too.
Wow.
And now they're doing the turbo study, they call it. And then they have the DLS. It's made in England. And all those, the price has just gone through the roof. I mean, George Bunting's got that white DLS that's quite the car. But it's kind of the same thing. I didn't really think about it. I thought about getting one, and then I resigned myself that I was never going to get one because I didn't want turbo. I wanted naturally aspirated. And then I'm leafing through Merit Partners, and there's one that kind of the spec that I would pick. They had two of them. There's one still there.
The color is your.
They're
Emory.
close. So the Emory's a custom metallic blue that it's not a Porsche color that the guy from Florida spec'd out. So they just call it blue, right? This is a Porsche color. The Singer is a Porsche color. It is Aga blue, which is non-metallic. I think it was originally spec'd on a 356 is where Aga came from. Yeah. I know Bob Miller showed me an Aga blue 912 in his shop that had original paint on it. But I, fell in love with that spec. So kind of like a lot of my cars, I fell in love with the spec and then bought it from them. So
Yeah. You seem a little bit like me in the sense that you like to have the car to drive them, but the process of the buying process for some of these cars or whatever it might be doesn't appeal quite as much. I work on cars not because I love working on cars, but because that's what allows me to own them and enjoy them. I just want to get in and drive them.
Yep.
And
Me
then
too.
and then be done with it when I'm not.
Although, so how I classify these is car shows, they're okay. And I'll go to the events and show the car off. But it's more fun driving them there and driving them home.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of where we're at. And every one of my cars get driven. So there's no Concours, got to sit in the garage because I'm afraid to get it dirty type of deal. And then the same thing with the value of the car. Some of them are pretty valuable. But from my perspective, I try to, once I have them, I get in them and drive them irregardless of what I paid for them, and try not to worry about what's it going to be worth 2 or 3 or 4 years from now if I put an extra 5,000 miles on the car. Because if I was worried about that, then I shouldn't have bought them to begin with. I don't believe that they're an investment vehicle to speculate on to make more money later. Some people believe that, but I just if I buy the right one, something would happen to me, and my wife had to sell them. I think she'll be okay. But by the same token, I don't really worry about that.
Yeah. So what's it like getting into the Singer after you've driven your 993, which is fairly stock?
So much faster,
Yeah.
much faster. That Singer's got 400 horsepower, and it weighs 2,350, I think. Mm-hmm. Louder. They look really classy, but it's pretty darn rowdy.
Yeah.
It's just sprung pretty stiff, got bigger tires. So it kind of feels like a cross between the 993 and a new GT3. Mm. Okay, kind of has the limits and the steering feel of that's modern, but the car's small like the 993, so you can pick a line in the lane. So, and quite honestly, I haven't put a lot of miles on it because right after I got it, the roads got bad.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not going to take that one out in the salt.
Yeah.
So,
it's a the Singer, for those who don't know, is based on the 964, which is very similar to the 993, with the main difference being the rear suspension. On the 993 went high tech with their multi-link rear suspension, where the 964 was a little bit more traditional.
But but everything in the Singer's bespoke. It's all their own stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
They got the Olin suspension, and you got the Ed Pink 4-liter motor, and then all the detail stuff is just unbelievable. The interior stuff, the hinges, the satin nickel on all the finishes, and the paint. They figured out a way to get the paint, like the doors are steel, but all the rest of the body panels are carbon fiber, and the paint matches perfectly. Yeah. The car's been full body PPF'd in the factory when it was apart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So most people take a finished car to a PPF place, take the lights out, take it apart a little bit. But Singer did it at the factory, which is interesting.
And did the guy who sold this have a similar story of why he let go?
I haven't spoken to him. He never it had delivery miles. He never drove it. Mm-hmm. So I guess he was a flipper, or just he had 10 or 15 cars. I got it, had 170 miles on it, but it's not perfect. It needed sorting out.
Yeah.
Fuel gauge doesn't work right. The brake pedal, the brake lights don't engage exactly when they should be. So I had to adjust the plunger out. Had to put a new fuel sender in. Yeah. The HVAC slides, the little ones that slide left and right, the little caps came off in my hand with the first time I went to operate them. And they, when I called the guy, one thing that Singer does give you is a liaison that you talk to for anything. So your mechanic would talk to him and you talk to him. He says, "Yeah, it's a Porsche part, and that's what happens."
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it still is an old car.
Right. It still has some old parts.
Yeah.
I will, if I back up to the Emory, I will tell you I had a really neat experience with that, where I got to interact with the Emory family. I have not given the Emory family a nickel, right? And they've treated me like I'm a coveted customer. They asked me to bring the car to the Audrain this past year because they were featured. So we showed the car along with about 25 other Emory cars, the way from Rod's grandfather's, one of his customs from West Coast Customs, all the way up through their most modern build, which was a 911, by the way. It was an RSR Tribute 911. And I got to meet the 23-year-old boy, his son-in-law, who hammered my car out. And he and his son and son-in-law and daughter and wife run that business today. And you can it's a family-run business that works together every day. They treat all their customers like family. And it was just really, really neat to be around them and listen to their stories.
The Emorys are royalty, Porsche royalty.
Really, really cool.
They are, I think, respected wherever they go, and their work is top notch. And if you're lucky enough to have an Emory, you've really got something that was truly handmade in the old style, if you will.
I haven't been to their shop yet, but I want to go, and I want to go to the Singer shop too. They're building 15 Emory 356s a year. they're building about 40 Singers a year now, and they're brand new production facility, in California. They were in kind of a garage type setting. Now they've built a pretty big brand new, but it's still not automated. Everything is still hand done, and they've assembled a team of artisans. I want to go see that too.
So what I don't see in the collection is one of Porsche's supercars.
Yeah,
appeal to
so yeah, Carrera GT would kind of be on the list. I will tell you, at Chesapeake Challenge, Steve Wood brought the one that he curates to the challenge, and boy, it took him 45 minutes to get it out of the trailer because the clearance is so low.
Yeah.
And I have a driveway that's pretty low too, so if I was ever going to do it, I'd probably go to Rapazzi or Graham Rahal and put the axle lift in, and so then you got to give them a whole bunch of money to buy the car, and you give them a whole bunch more money to modernize it, right? To put new suspension in. Now I guess Porsche's giving you the tires, but the newest tires that took all the time off on the ring. But it might be a little high maintenance for me and a little too special, maybe a little bit too expensive. I think I have a kind of a threshold that I don't want to go over as far as how much money I want to spend.
So speaking of which, who takes care of your collection?
So from a detail perspective, so I have a 4,000 foot converted horse barn that I store them all in, and then I have 2 full-time employees that fluff it.
And this is all premises. It's not at your house. Right?
No, it's in Westminster. It's close to where my office is, and my dad was a horse guy. And he built a house in Westminster, only about 4 miles from my office.
I always love these garages. When you drive by, you don't realize what's inside of them.
When my dad got to be about my age, he was a fox hunter. He fell off the horse and hurt himself. So then he stopped riding horses. So then slowly but surely, and that was a while ago, 20-some years ago, probably pushing 30 now. So then we ripped all the stalls out of the barn and turned it into car storage. And back then it was broom finished and not heated or anything. And slowly but surely, kind of the last step we just finished a couple of weeks ago, actually. Now it's sided on the inside, insulated, heated,
it looks gorgeous.
Floors redone.
I would never realize that was a horse barn.
Yeah. So and then those two, it's a guy and a girl that do the detail work. They work there full time, keeping my cars going, and then the company has 5 SUVs that they end up washing every week too. So they do the kind of the wash and the wax, and then the maintenance. I've kind of picked different people for different cars, right? So I use GTP some, I use AtSpeed some, and then I use the dealer some. The new ones are still serviced at the dealer. So and it seems like there's always one of them that needs something.
Who keeps track of that?
Well, I do.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, I keep track of it all, and that's part of it. So kind of in my business, my dad and stepmom and I started our business in '76 when I was right out of high school. And over the years now, my 2 boys are in it. They're both in their 40s. And I've become less and less tactical and more strategic. So my typical day is go to the office early, spend 4 or 5 hours there, then go switch out a car, and then go do something car related for the rest of the afternoon, come home, do phone calls and emails, right, for work, and then rinse and repeat the next day.
Nice. It's not a bad.
So kind of the car hobby routine is kind of half-time job.
Sure.
And the job is half-time job.
It's funny. At a previous job, we had some. I think it was a GT3 RS 3.8, a 997. And we met up with somebody, and this is Northern California, who had his own 997.1 GT3, but with like a Sharkworks like 4.2 or 3.9, one of those two. And he was in construction, and he went through rear tires every 3,000 miles, like every month, because he was driving.
Driving it all the time.
Yeah, driving all the time on the back roads of Northern California to get to his sites, and that's what.
Yeah,
you remind me of is you drive a ton. And
so from my perspective now, I don't drive as much because we used to go pick up plans and to bid jobs and go see customers more. Now it's more automated. But I still, put a fair amount. I would say I probably drive 25,000 miles a year today, split up between 15 cars.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
But I I don't think I ever heard you talk about doing any kind of track events with the cars.
No, I'm not a track guy. I've done it a couple times. You know, I did it with the BMW. I went to their school. And the best part about it was I never drove my car on the track. I drove their car.
That's
on
always the
tracks,
best part.
right? And it didn't do much for me. I'm happier, 20 over on a back road and as opposed to a track. It's just me, being full on the gas or full on the brake and counting lap times just never did it for me. So I've just never been a track guy.
Well, that's the great thing about cars, where some people love detailing, they love concours.
Yep.
Other people are track rats, and that's their life, and other people just enjoy.
Yeah. So for me, it's not have them. I consider them all drivers, but really nice. Mm-hmm. Really nice drivers, not perfect, but damn near perfect, right? But then drive them. And then when you drive them down some, right? So for instance, they're all PPF'd. Mm-hmm. Every car that I have is PPF'd.
Really?
67
Even the old English cars?
67 Jaguar XKE PPF, 62 Austin Healey 3000 PPF. Because I want to be able to drive the car and not stone chip it, right? So now all those little louvers and stuff, it takes a pretty good PPF guy to figure out a way to get all that in there without having it lift
Is this
up.
like a full body PPF? Or just
No, I do the whole front, and I do rockers, mirrors, and of course the chrome mirrors I don't do, but any of the body painted mirrors I do. And then, something in the back. 911s typically have a stone guard that, back in the day was terrible. So we take that off and put, a clear PPF there, and then down on the rear rocker too.
I remember you saying that your detailer Joe doesn't do ceramic. He does.
No, he doesn't believe in it. He's a wax and polish guy.
But
the reason that people do ceramics, so they don't have to wax as often. So we'll wax them. We wax them all 2 or 3 times a year.
Plus, you keep your
and they're all inside. They're all climate controlled. Right. Hardly take them out in the rain. The most wear the wax gets is washing them.
Yeah, or just driving it.
Yeah, and just driving it. That's exactly right.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I love ceramic, and it's really incredible what they can do. But my cars are covered in the garage, and I always tell people just a good, healthy drive was probably wears down the wax more than rain.
Now, for me, too, the downside of ceramic is, like, I have a boat, okay, and some people will do ceramic on their boats. If there's one place where the water runs down and wears out the ceramic, you can't patch it. You have to do it all over again.
So that happens.
Yeah.
So ceramic can wear down. Yeah, I know exactly, like underneath the mirror.
Right. If that spot runs down on the door and puts a little streak where the ceramics wore off, you can't just take extra wax and put it on there. You have to strip all the ceramic off and put all new on and spend that couple $1,000 to do that again.
Yeah.
So
I guess they clean your car after every run?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's I'll take it home for the weekend, drive it 2 days, and then on Monday they'll clean it up. So, but yeah, pretty much if I've driven it, over the weekend.
I know Damon thought it was crazy, but I said one time one of the podcasts I say I wash mine in the summertime after every use.
Yeah.
I just I'd rather have a clean car coming out of the garage.
There's lots of times when it's with only one use, but sometimes it might be 2 uses. Like I might go to Hunt Valley on Saturday and Annapolis on Sunday, take my wife out to dinner in between and not clean it, and then Monday morning it'll get cleaned.
I can't show up to Cars and Coffee with brake dust on my wheels. I'll never hear the end of it.
See, my thought process is,
I got ceramic on some of them, so you get that, right?
Yeah. I get home from the autocross.
Yeah.
I take it home. It's Sunday night.
Yeah,
I'm going to another autocross next weekend. Might as well just leave it as is. Tape's going back on anyway.
See, I would be at work just thinking of that stuff.
Yeah, that's right.
Sitting on the.
So the 997 that I have, I wanted a GT3, and I wanted a 3.8 GT3, and I couldn't find one that I liked, and then I came across this GTS. And after doing some research, it's a C4 GTS, 10,000 miles, black, and it's perfect.
Yeah, 997.
997.
Yeah.
Does it have the aero kit on it?
With an aero kit.
Yep.
Well, it's more rare than the GT3 is with the GTF. And it's got 408 horsepower. with probably a little bit more usable with the DFI than the Metzger is, that's with that real peaky torque thing that everybody loves in the GT3. And it's a little bit more practical, and it's still fun.
Yeah.
It's still fun.
So does it have Sport PASM or the regular PASM?
It's got Sport.
Sport PASM.
Yep.
Nice.
And of course, I've put Bilstein. I hot rodded that one a little bit. I put Bilstein coilovers on that, and I lowered it to RS height, and I put different wheels and tires on it.
Yeah.
And I put Fab Speed intake, and I put the Fab Speed intake on it not because it gave me any more power. I just like the look of the carbon fiber and the two little air cleaners on there instead of the stock air cleaners.
Yeah.
What else did I do? Oh, I did. I took out the center muffler and did Pfister exhaust too.
Nice.
So it's just a little bit louder.
Yeah.
So,
the 997 Carrera GTS and Carrera 4 GTS.
Yeah.
Those are, people know about them, but I feel like they're underappreciated.
Yeah.
Sort of like, I think it's like everybody knows the 944 Turbo, but how many people know the 944 S2? And
I think
in
they
my
were
opinion,
also
it's better, but
they're center lock wheels that come.
They
with
are.
it.
yeah, unless you could have gotten them opted for the 5 lugs, but
I
But
think
they
standard
come with the center locks.
standard,
Mine
yeah.
has center locks on
Yeah.
it, so I have center locks on that one and on both 992s.
yeah. So fun fact, so when I graduated from college, I worked for Excellence out of college. My very first press trip was to Palm Springs to go drive that car.
Wow,
So
interesting.
yeah, just random little fact.
Now that car, especially the C4, it looked
Yeah.
like with that standard ride height, it looked like it was a Dakar.
Yeah.
And the ride height was unbelievable. Well, that's when I learned about the reason that the ride height was so high, and that you go to somebody like Igor Gennady at GTP, and they set it for European height, but it's all about the U.S. requirement for the headlight spec, right? With the ride height. So
It was really bad with the 964
yeah,
and 993 too,
Yeah.
because they just we were just talking about it on the podcast we recorded, the last podcast, where they had a 996 aero kit, and something's just off with it, and it's the stance, and it's because it has stock ride height.
yeah.
If you lowered it an inch, it would change the whole look of the car. But yeah, those pesky US DOT requirements.
So I own a 996 as well. My son has a turbo, not a turbo S, but a turbo. My 996, it's an example of me being impulsive though. So I'm on Ryan Friedman's site. This car shows up, and it has 13,000 miles. It's a GT3, which is the first US GT3, right? So 996.2 GT3, and it's midnight blue over glove leather, natural brown leather it's called. And that spec, it's one of 7 in the United States.
Yeah.
And I just fell in love with the spec and had to have the car.
Yeah.
Didn't really need a 996, and that car, I've driven that on a couple long trips, and that's an awesome car to drive on a long trip.
Oh yeah, it's still a relative bargain for what you're getting. To me, it's one of the rawest GT3s that were ever made.
Now I got to go to the gym and use the leg machine with my right leg to get it to be even with the clutch on the left leg, because it's heavy.
Yeah.
And it came with a short shift, and we switched it out and made it stock again, and it drives a lot better without the short shift.
So it sounds like a lot of the cars you bought or seen online.
Yeah,
I know you've been to Amelia Island.
I have.
Does the auctions ever anything in the auctions get your?
No, I mean I've been once to Amelia Island this last time, and there was one that got my attention. That green 300 SL Roadster that came across at $2.2 million. It was a gorgeous car. But I'm just not going to bring myself to spend that much money on a car from 1962 that I'm going to have to put a bunch of money in as well. So I can't stretch that far. But a 300 SL Roadster would be on the list, and then a Carrera GT would be on the list too. But I just haven't gotten myself over the personal threshold to spend that much on a car.
You get it all back when you sell it.
I don't sell them. That's the issue, right? And then I'm to the point where I'm out of room. Okay. And And I'm also to the point where I don't think I can keep up with them with many more. So I think I got the right amount, and I'm kind of happy with the ones that I have.
That's what I always wondered about when I see people with a lot of cars. Is because when we saw Jerry Seinfeld's collection, we asked their handlers, Gianni, how do you take care of all these cars? How do you know when an oil change is due? And he pulled out his phone and he said, I have a fleet app.
Yeah.
And it tells me exactly when the cars are due, where they're at, and being repaired, all this. And I thought, well, that's
the father-son team, right?
Yeah,
Gianni and the boy.
But that's what you need, really, because I have a hard enough time with our cars.
That's right.
When's the next oil change due? When's this maintenance due? When's that maintenance due?
Kind of, though, you never drive them enough miles. So now I'm in the just annually, right? Okay, it's springtime. Let's go get them all done.
Yeah.
But like your GT3, the spark plugs aren't necessarily just mileage. It's either mileage or
time.
4 years, I think, something like that.
Yeah, it's time. That's exactly right.
And when I asked one of our Goldmeister tech, does that really matter? He said, well, that material was a ceramic or porcelain or something like that ages.
Yeah.
So you don't want to have a crack on you, and then Porsche is going to say, well, we told you to do it every 4 years,
right.
and you didn't.
Yeah. And maybe I'm not into it long enough to have screwed it up.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
No, it's a lot to manage. It's
so that's why I'm holding back and kind of digesting what I have now, and just enjoying it. Probably one of my favorite things to do now, and I did this 3 or 4 times last year. The last one being there was a GT3 event in Tyson's Corner, and I took. They also welcomed Spiders and Speedsters. So I got my 2 sons with me, and we took my 996 GT3, my 992 GT3, and the Emory, and the 3 of us took those cars from Westminster down to Tyson's and went to the car show, and they came back. So looking at your car being driven by somebody else while you're next to it is a different experience. You usually don't get to see your car on the outside running. And that's kind of fun. And then we switch keys back and forth and drive different cars. So it's kind of neat to be able to have something I can enjoy and have in common with my adult kids.
Are you signed up for Treffen?
I am.
What car are you taking down there?
I haven't decided. Depends on the weather.
Yeah.
Right? And I can kind of make a game time decision based on the weather. I'm going to Amelia, too. My son and I are going. Right now, I think we're going to take the Turbo S and the 997 to Amelia because we have a business meeting in Charleston the next week. So one thing I got to get over going down there is actually leaving the car outside overnight for a couple of days. I don't like that very much with some of the special cars in particular. So we're not going to trailer. Last year we took the 68L and showed it at Amelia. And kind of, and maybe this is just me, but when I showed the car, and you and I spoke about that gives you a good parking place. But the other thing it does, too, is it anchors you at Works from when it starts to when it's over. If I'm not anchored to that and I just drive a car and put it in the paddock, then maybe I'm going to stay at Works till 1 o'clock, and then maybe I'm going to go to one of the auctions.
There you go.
Yeah. Right?
And then you can bring the Carrera GT you buy back over.
So I'm more flexible, if you will, by just driving down there.
Yeah.
And driving back.
Well,
but awesome. Doing that with my son is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah,
so now maybe will I take the touring if it's not going to rain very much? Probably, because it's got Cup 2Rs and then Cup 2Rs in the wet for 1,000 miles.
Tough thing about it.
Maybe not.
Yeah, me too. When we leave here, we just got to hope that we're not coming back to lousy weather coming back.
In the first week of March.
Yeah. It happens. We've had blizzards in March up here.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what got me about Amelia last year. I think I've told you this is, I took that 68 911L and it poured the whole time, right? Well, that car had never been out in the rain under my, and the car show's pouring down rain, right? And I ended up after Works, we were staying in Jacksonville, so I was driving the car 30 miles one way in the rain. Well, I'm not used to that with that car. So I'm having a conniption over the car getting wet on show day, but I got over that. And then I parked, and I had never seen a Ferrari 250 before. Well, at Amelia, there was a class of 11 of them, right? One of them was worth $70 million. The one that won, the guy that owns WeatherTech, right? That silver race car, the GTO. Well, and 2 or 3 of them were California Spiders with the top down. Well, they're outside and they're millions of dollars and they're getting soaking wet in the rain and they don't care. It's like, oh my God, how could you do that?
It puts it in perspective. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Now, I know they had staff to dry them all up as soon as they, right.
You know, if it's 70 million, what does a seat cost?
Right.
With the leather and whatnot. So.
Exactly right. So I will tell you with the Singer, it came. There's 3 options. There's touring seats, sports seats, and track seats when you spec the car. Well, the guy who spec'd the track seats, and of course they're custom made to match the interior and all that stuff. But they're carbon fiber and they're not adjustable. They just slide. They don't tilt, and there's no up down adjustment either. And right now the way it's adjusted, the steering wheel doesn't have an up down either.
No.
So the steering wheel is blocking the tack. So their Singer today is building me the touring seats.
Oh, that's great.
And they wired it so they're 8-way, so they can plug in. And you can only imagine what they cost. I mean, they're very, very expensive. But they're treating me like I'm their customer, even though I wasn't. And I'm supposedly within the next week or so going to have the custom made touring seats for my car.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I'll have the track seats and the touring seats. So.
Very cool.
Yep.
Yeah, the track seats are cool to look at, and I always tell people just make sure you can live with them.
So for an hour, they're great. 3 hours, not so much. Yeah. For me, my leg starts going to sleep a little bit. Yeah. And I fit in them okay. I mean, you kind of sink in, and I'm a big guy, and I'm okay. But I've never seen, for instance, in the 18-way comfort seat that I have in the modern car, I think that's the best car seat I've ever sat in. And I've never felt like I needed more bolster than that. Mm-hmm. And even if you are really sporty, you're going 30 or 40 over the speed limit, or you go 70 around a 30-mile-an-hour turn, I've never felt like I needed more, like I do in the British cars. Now, the British cars have no bolster, right? So you're getting thrown all over
door
the
panels
place.
to bolster.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and you're kind of wedged in there anyway.
Yep,
so.
yep, and your knee on the transmission tunnel,
That's
right?
exactly right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, my wife, we're looking at Macans, and she was asking about the 18-way, the 14-way, the 4-way.
Oh, the 18-ways are so good.
And I said, the one good thing about the 14 or 18-way, I said, you'll probably never get bored because you're going to infinitely try different adjustments until you find that Goldilocks. But when you find that Goldilocks, make sure you understand
hit that memory thing,
how to use the memory switch.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than finding the perfect spot than shutting the car off when you turn it back on and reconfigure it to a whole different setting. That's learn the memory before you start messing around with the seat placement.
So my wife has a 24 Macan GTS that and one of the reasons I got that car is because it's going to be, I guess, one of the last ICE ones, right? Mm-hmm. And what a great car that is. What a great overall. Yep. She can drive it as a grocery getter, and then I can get in and with her in the car and be sporty with it. I not many better all-arounders than that thing.
No, it's it's a shame to call it an SUV because it's like a sports car.
Well, and the Cayenne's same way, lower, makes no off-road aspirations at all. But
your Cayenne,
I can put bicycles in the back of it.
You have a turbo GT, so
I do.
Yep. A little bit different than a base Cayenne.
Yep.
Which like you said earlier in the podcast, you shocked us all when you came into the office today and said you're on summer tires.
I am.
I was like, wow.
And I just ordered wheels and winter tires for it today. But for the past 3 years, we've had no snow here. So I could get away with summer tires.
Yeah, we've had more snow this year than the past probably more than 3 years. I feel like 4 or 5 or something, right?
Yeah, first time I pulled out my snowblower from its far away location to a closer
I let mine sit outside and go bad. And I never replaced it, and I just decided to start shoveling, and then I shoveled last night at about 10:30, and I shoveled this morning at about 5:30, and it wasn't so bad because if I let it get above 2 inches, it's bad. But if I keep it at 2 inches, I can do one pass and don't have to pick the shovel up. So
hopefully this happens once every 3 years. And,
that's right.
We don't have any problems. All right, so if you want to get our PCA newsletters, which are free right now, remember to go to pca.org to sign up for performance news, e-brake news, and Mark Fresh news, all free. They come out. I know eBrake comes out every week. There was Performance and
Nope.
Mark Fresh.
Performance and Mark Fresh news are both once per month.
So once per month.
They send on. I should know which Monday, but on Mondays, one Monday per month.
So at minimum, sign up for eBrake because there's a lot of original content and all the big announcements come out for eBrake. I can't tell you how many times people will say to me, I didn't see that. Where was I supposed to see that? And I remind them that probably when they signed up, they said, do not notify me of anything because they thought they're going to get spam email. And instead, they didn't get any of notifications about cool events. In the news, the only news that I saw that was interesting was the fact that Porsche is going to be coming out with their new Dakar, the rumor is. Yeah. And it's probably going to have the hybrid powertrain on it.
Yeah.
Which will make it really, really interesting model.
So that car intrigues me.
Yeah, David and I were at LA Auto Show when it debuted. It was something that I said, I really got to respect the manufacturer because a lot of manufacturers would come out with a prototype but never build this car. But kudos to Porsche. They built it, and they didn't just lift it up a little bit and call it a off-road car. They really
engineered it.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah. Developed it, moved intercoolers around, and they made it. And of course, when they demoed it in sand dunes, and they were showing you this is a functional off-road car, not just a pretty body.
I feel like what we're learning from here is that if there's going to be a 911 Carrera GTS model, there will probably be a Dakar model, which uses, the last one used the same GTS or very similar, same power output GTS drivetrain, and now here we got the T hybrid. So
I'm looking forward to Tech Tactics because we're going to hear more about the GTS hybrid system.
We should say, actually, there was another bit of news last week that was pretty big. Porsche is officially and wholeheartedly retooling combustion engine cars.
I think we did talk about that.
Did we talk about that?
Yeah, it was
because we recorded two in the same week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is too funny.
That's why I did put it.
I'm losing track of things.
Yes, but it's going to be very, very interesting. If you haven't heard it, Porsche is. You got to really read between the lines on these headlines when they say Porsche is giving up on EV.
Not giving up.
They're not giving up on EV. They're still going full steam ahead. But what they're going to do is keep the gas cars. Now the question is going to be, will they develop the gas cars anymore, or are they just going to keep on producing them? Because some of these models are fairly old, and they're in need of a real refresh, not just a couple of suspension or aero pieces, but a real improvement.
And they seem to switch gears, right? They went from with some of the platforms, Macan and I guess Boxster. And Cayenne,
I don't think the governments have changed their requirements. So in Germany, I would imagine they're still going to go with Macan only on EV because of the rules. The U.S. it's different, and if things continue to change, obviously it'll keep on selling gas Macans, gas Cayennes, and whatnot. But
V8 through 2030 or 2032, I think.
Will they come out with a
new V8?
No, I'm thinking a new 718.
Or that,
yeah. Will there be not the same
a hybrid
powertrain?
or an EV?
Yeah. The hybrid I'd be very surprised about because that's only come out so far in the GTS, but certainly it'll be interesting to see what they do because you know how it is. It's like doing a building. You don't do it overnight, right? You got to plan it. You got to have an architect and everything. It's the same thing with.
And while you're going through that process, you got to kind of speculate on what the market's going to be once you're ready.
Yeah, they're looking 5 years from now or whatever.
That's a good point. They're looking out years ahead of where they're going to be. So,
and I think they missed it. I think they thought the EV adoption would be faster than it has been.
I think everyone. I mean, I think they bet too much on the Chinese market.
Right.
I mean, the Chinese market is buying EVs. They're just not buying anything but their own EVs.
Right.
So that probably they didn't factor in. So it's very interesting times in the automotive world right now. That
well, the Chinese government doesn't like you buying other people's cars.
No, that's the thing.
It puts big number of tariffs on them, and
it's a big difference between that and the U.S.
Yep.
Yes, and I think what's going to happen is they're going to try to bring in their cars into the U.S. with very attractive prices that will maybe send people to Chinese EVs instead of domestic EVs.
So I will tell you that Cross Turismo Taycan used is pretty intriguing to me.
Oh yeah, I picked one for the Mart Fresh article yesterday.
Great cars. Great cars.
So yeah, it's a great car at $70,000 compared to $165,000 sticker.
Yeah. This one was that I picked for our article, 75,000,
Yeah.
really well optioned,
Yep.
2022 model, and a brand new one, a Taycan 4 Cross Turismo, starts at 111,000.
Right, and they get up to 150, 160
Yeah.
real quick
Yeah,
for
so-
like a 4S.
Exactly.
With the two motors, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, just like any four-door Porsche, they tend to depreciate.
Yeah.
I mean, all Porsches for a while, they're depreciated. That just happens that the two-doors really hold their value.
Yeah.
But the four-doors, you can get some Panameras. You can get smoking deals.
Yeah.
Panameras.
So one of the cars that I had, I came out of SUVs, and I had a daily. I had a Mercedes AMG E63 wagon, and I love that car
Very
as
nice.
a daily. Okay, and then, but what I really wanted instead of that car is I wanted a Panamera turbo wagon, and I couldn't get an allocation.
Wow, really?
wow.
No, it was right when EVs were starting. And I guess there was a conflict that they just weren't making as many Panameras, and they couldn't get a Panamera allocation. So a used Panamera turbo wagon might,
Could
that's
you
another
daily an EV? The
I
range?
don't know. I don't know if I can get across that bridge with my mind. I personally, sure I could. I can drive 30 miles one way, so that's not so bad.
Oh, that's not
It's
bad. You can do
200
it then,
miles,
yeah.
right? But I don't know about the charging station and what that looks
Just
like.
put a level 2 in your garage and
Right.
wake up in the morning and
Yeah.
start charging.
Now, I
ready to go.
mean, I run 480 in my manufacturing plant, so I could put a DC fast
level 1 and write it off.
but it's $150,000. It's difficult to justify.
Small price. You got to charge up your forklifts, right?
Yeah, no, they're diesel, so I don't charge up anything
Yeah.
because I don't want to have to deal with the batteries.
Well, Porsche makes not that they didn't make forklifts. They designed a forklift.
Yeah, Tony Hatter designed a
I
forklift.
forget the name of the
for
forklift.
some other
it's not a popular
company, yeah.
name in the U.S., but yeah,
Yeah.
they designed a.
This forklift was the most stylish forklift.
Oh, I
I've
bet
ever
it
seen.
was.
I looked it up to see how we could get one for PCA because we'd love to have a forklift, but it was like $30,000.
Oh yeah, forklifts are expensive. I have 9 of them. I
No,
knew
we
it.
can't.
They're very expensive.
We can't do that. All right. So upcoming PCA events, as we've been talking about, Works Reunion, Amelia Island, March 7th. Registration's closed, but you're more than welcome to come watch. All you got to do is pay a parking fee. If you walk into the event, there's no charge. Or if you bum a ride off somebody, we just charge per car, not by the person for entry. And we have breakfast there, a lot of food trucks. It's a all-day event if you want to be there all day. Treffen Homestead, which sold out, I think, in 4 minutes.
Yeah.
That's April 30th through May 4th at the Omni Homestead Resort. The Porsche Parade in Oklahoma City, July 6th through 12th. Phase 1 registration opens on February 26th at noon. Phase 1 is just the hotel. Basically, you're registering yourself and whoever's coming, and then you get the hotel choice, and then you get another month, 2 months to look at all the other events, because phase 2 is the big one. That's where you're on there probably for an hour, clicking off all the options and everything you're going to do. But phase 1 is much easier, and that's on the
Placeholder.
26th.
Housing and personal registration, and then phase 2 activity registration.
Got it.
Treffen at Sea, the 70th anniversary cruise, PCA 70th this year, starts August 30th and runs through September 6th. And we get to go up to New England, I think some of Canada.
That'll be fun.
It is fun because we're probably going to have well over 1,000 PCA people on board. Yeah. And I went for the first time last year, and yes, it's very cool walking around the boat or ship. I'm calling it a boat like it's something small. And whenever you can see PCA people because they've all got the lanyards that say Treffen at Sea from a mile away. And we met so many people that when we were just sitting down for breakfast, they would come up and say, "You mind if we sit with you?" And you meet people just like parade from all around the country, and you share the common.
You're going to what,
common interest.
Boston and Montreal or Quebec City and Nova Scotia, right?
Something like that. They
Yeah.
did take off the one I really wanted to go to was where you had the Emory.
Newport.
Newport, yeah, with the all
Yeah.
drain and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Evidently, Newport doesn't want cruise ships, and they found this out after the fact. So, but
So they have them, but smaller ones, and
Yeah,
they
must be.
anchor out and take.
Yeah.
Newport seems like the kind of place that wouldn't want cruise ships.
yeah, this is not
Definitely.
a small cruise ship. I think this is
No,
pretty big.
I get it.
So we're lucky we can drive up to the all drain if we want to.
That's
It's,
one worth doing.
yeah.
I
We
had
went
a
up
really
there,
good time.
Like 2 or 3 years ago, I went up there for to help out with the display that PCA was doing. Videos, Damon?
Yeah, I'll talk about some that are coming up or might already be out. One is we did a video, now like 2 years ago, we filmed some videos at Road Scholars with Cam Ingram. We've already released several.
It was last year, actually.
No,
Not last year.
2023.
I'm thinking last year, 2023.
Yeah, August
Yeah.
2023.
Not
So,
quite 2 years, but
yeah, not quite, but it almost feels like it. But we've released some, and we still have some in store. And the latest one is a 906 that has a livery that looks like tiger stripes that was taped onto the car. It's a 906E, so fuel injected, a little more horsepower than the carbureted version, but it's basically an 1,800-ish pound, very lightweight, sub 2,000 pound car with a 220 horsepower motor, and a look into Porsche's racing activities and the start of their prototype era in a sense. So look for that. It's already out. We also have an overview of the flat 4 cam Ernst Furman engine. We also interviewed Joe Buzetta's son. Is he also named Joe? I'm forgetting.
I think so.
I think so.
Junior,
Yeah.
yeah.
So Joe Jr. and his Elva Porsche. And we also interviewed and did a video with Cam Ingram on Road Scholars 904. And I think that covers it. So we've got some cool stuff that we've sort of been holding since it's evergreen sort of content. So look at that. You'll see Works Reunion, Amelia Island, in a month or so. We'll be releasing that right after Works.
if you want to try racing and you don't want to expose your car to the negatives of racing, with the possibility of wrecking or getting stone chips, there is PCA Sim Racing. What's their logo? Where the racing, the cars aren't real, but the racing is.
Exactly.
Yes.
And
I have to give them a props because I was watching a Sebring live stream, and for a second I thought it was PCA Sim Racing.
Yeah.
That's how good the graphics are that I had to sit there for a second and say, am I watching the sim racing or am I watching real racing?
Yeah.
And I thought, boy, sim racing has come a long way that I can't tell the difference sometimes.
Yeah. And we should also mention on that note, to confuse you even further, we actually will be live streaming 2 more club races. So real PCA club racing races, March 21st through 23rd at VIR. And also April 11 through 13 at Road Atlanta. We live streamed the race weekend at Sebring, January 31st through February 2nd. So go check that out. They're still on YouTube, but we'll be doing live streams in March and April.
All that did was make me wish I was still racing.
Yeah, right.
Go to PCASimRacing.com for more information
Yep.
if you're interested in going into that.
At Amelia last year, there was a booth with those rigs. Boy, they got some pretty pretty interesting rigs for the sim racing.
Yeah, sky's the limit with those.
I was going to say, you can get easily to 6 figures if you want something.
Oh, they had them all, as
Very
a
realistic.
one-stop shop. Just
Yeah.
write them a check and they bring it in and install it for you.
Yeah, I looked at the pricing and I'm like, this is no different than real racing.
I wonder if I called them up, hey, I would like your biggest, most expensive system, but I'd like to install it myself, save a little money.
Yeah.
If you want any PCA insider swag, go to our PCAwebstore.org, and you can find we have the bottles, the mugs,
T-shirts.
T-shirts, plus all the PCA stuff that we sell as well. If you want the free Podcast Insider decals, we have ones for inside your car, for outside of your car. You can ask for both. Just put on the title Insider decals, and remember to give us your address. Sometimes we just get emails that say, please give me some, with no address.
Yeah, send that to podcast@pca.org.
Yep. Joe, it's been a blast.
Yeah, it's been fun.
I thought I already
for
knew
having
all
us.
about your cars, but I got to learn a lot more.
Cool.
And I think there's probably even a room for a part 2
Okay.
once you come back with Amelia, because maybe we can get Bob Miller and Jim Earl back to
That'd be awesome.
walk you out to one of the auctions, because
Oh, yeah.
I've been to auctions with those two, and they're pretty dangerous when they're
Oh, I'm sure they are, yeah. Especially a couple drinks in. Right?
exactly.
Yes, exactly. I'm thinking Carrera 4 lightweight right now.
Yeah, I'm sure, Bob would try to figure out a way to spend my money.
Yeah, that's the best way.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for listening. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and consider sharing our show with fellow Porsche enthusiasts. Until next time, be safe on the road.